It's all I know.
Yeah, exactly. And it's been able to keep our costs down as well, so we can just like keep, you know what I mean? We can keep saving money and like keep doing it. You know what I mean? So it's all in house.
We very rarely, I don't even know on any account, will get studio musicians. Not because we don't want to or not because we don't need it. It's just not, I think out of necessity, we've just learned how to figure it all out and how to do everything either in the box or like Joe plays bass and I play guitar.
We both play keys.
We both play keys, yeah. So it's like out of necessity, we've just figured out how can we make it sound like, even like, you know, the pop punk thing has now come back into music, but like how can we make it sound like this in our home studio and using like Travis Barker samples from Splice and, you know, and just us playing the instruments that we can. And I think we are able to get it sound really like it's comparable to things people are doing at a studio. So
for sure, yeah.
Yeah, and also sometimes your limitations can be the source of inspiration. Like when you have everything, if you have everything available, sometimes it's not as unique sounding. Like if you only have one microphone, you're going to do interesting things with that one microphone. And if you have only a few VSTs, you're only going to use those VSTs. It'll give you a certain sound.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
I think putting limitations on things sometimes is actually very helpful. Like sometimes just to practice, like, okay, I'm going to make a beat in 10 minutes. Whatever I get done, you know what I mean? Like makes you not think so much. It makes you go in autopilot mode. Yep. And then you just do because that's what, if you're on a time limit, that's what you do. Same thing with like, hey, today, you know what? We only have a guitar, bass, and we have this one synth pad. It's like, all right, well, we got to make something cool out of it. You know what I mean? It's like, it's like...
And you probably will.
Yeah, and you probably will, because it's like, if you have good taste and you know what and you know what you're aiming for, like, you can get it done,
Right, your taste is everything.
Yep, yeah. It's so true. I think somebody with just a nowadays, somebody with just a laptop and good taste can make something cooler than somebody that's in a huge studio that doesn't really know what they're doing, So
yeah. I think time is a very efficient motivator too. Like lately, I talked about with Joe, like I'll set a timer for myself. Like I have 20 minutes to do these drums. That's it. That's all I have. So it's like there's no searching for like the perfect sample. Like what feels good at that moment. Choose it. Move on. And honestly, I feel like I make better decisions that way because I don't have the time. Of course, if I need to go back, like, I'll figure it out and I'll go back and change things around. But even when it comes to like Joe and I producing in the room together, our whole thing is like first thought, best thought. Mm-hmm. I think that scares people sometimes because people, especially again, we're creatives. We want to overthink. We want to perfect. There's no such thing. So it's like, if it feels good in the room, we're like, let's move on. Let's do it.
And then if you sleep on and you need to change it the next day, that's totally
Which is a new thing for us too, because usually we'd be like, whatever we did that day, that's it.
Yeah, but recently we've been like, oh, let's go back and revise.
Maybe it's like a production maturity thing. We're like growing up.
Yeah. Maybe. But the guy that I just had on this past week on the show, a guy out of Israel, Noam Levenberg, he was telling me he tries to do like the majority of his mix in 30 minutes. He's like, that 30 minutes, like, if I'm spending more than 2 minutes on like a kick drum, I've spent too long. I have to just like, okay, is this good enough? Good, move on, and I can come back to it later.
I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that.
Those mixes end up better.
100%. They always end up better.
I totally agree with that statement for sure. Like, actually, though, it's a good story. Zach and I were mixing a song for an artist like 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago.
Very recently.
And I've never, ever done this before. I shouldn't say it ever in my whole career. I accidentally overwrote the whole mix and I had to redo the whole thing, which was the most
I felt so bad for Joe.
Horrifying thing. I've never done that.
He spent like 5 hours on the mix already.
You do it once, you never do it again.
Right, exactly. I'd never done that before. So you know what I did? I was like, okay, I'm just going to open back up. And honestly, I was like, I'm going to give myself an hour to get it back to the place it was. And I think honestly, the second mix turned out better, if I'm being honest. Like I really do, because I gave myself that time limit. I'm like, yo, if it's not as good as it was in an hour, we're going to figure something else out. But I'm going to give myself an hour to get it back to that place. And I think it sounds great, So.
I can attest. It sounded
because
great.
you remembered the journey.
Yep. It's funny how your brain will catalog things. It's like, oh, when I got to the guitar, I remember what I did in this guitar. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I remember the effects I did on it and stuff like that. I did it really fast because it's just like, because I had to,
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. Also, like, Zach, you were talking about, like, perfectionism, and it's clearly something that a lot of us suffer from, including me.
Yeah.
And I think it's just so important sometimes to just let go of that.
Yeah.
And just create something, and it's going to be imperfect, but, like, it'll have a
Yep.
vibe,
100%.
For sure.
And at the end of the day, that's more important.
Yeah.
And
I will say, though.
preaching to myself.
Yeah, no, definitely.
For sure. I remember when I was a kid, and I was listening to Alkaline Trio.
Yeah.
And the song Radio, and Matt Skiba's voice cracks, like, he goes out of... Like, it goes out of key.
Yeah.
But I'm like, that imperfection actually makes that song perfect to me. It's so good because he's really, that was a take he was just feeling it on. Like, you know what I mean? Like, his voice cracks and it sounds so dope. to me. I was like, that imperfection makes it perfect. You
know? And we
go
for vibe over, vibe is a part of performance, but we go for like performance over perfection all the time, especially when we're comping vocals. Because like we all know, like you're gonna end up melodyning and auto-tuning it. Like, but if the performance is there and the vibe is there, I would much rather have that than hitting the note perfectly. The onset is perfect. And the other thing I was gonna say really quickly is like the other benefit of us having a duo, and I think the reason why we're able to maybe let go of perfectionism is because at all times one of us is producing and the other person is a listener. And I think that's one of the major successes about and things that has led us to success is because neither of us is like quote unquote producing at the exact same time. So one of us is able to always like sit in the back of the room and like hear it as a listener and be like, yo, that's sick, or yo, like we need to go in and fix this. And it like you get to take your cap off a little bit. As opposed to when you do sessions by yourself, and I know when I do sessions by myself, it takes me much longer because you can't see the trees through the forest or the forest through the trees because you don't know, is this good, is it not? And you don't have a person to turn to like, Joe, is this good? Like,
that's like Zach like summed it up so well. And like, there's obviously hundreds of reasons why we love being a production duo together, but that's like one of the main ones is that like, obviously we trust each other creatively and you always have that person to say, hey, yo, is this sick? Like, what should we do here? Like, you know what I mean? Like, and because of that, I think I know that we get things done faster because we always can bounce off each other like that. You know, it's so important.
Yeah. And also, even just speaking to a partnership, it's really hard. It's very hard to find people that you work really well with. And but on top of that, they're just really good people. Like Joe is legitimately like one of the best people in the world.
Ditto, buddy. I love
I think also on top of that, we are the only production duo that says we love each other more than anyone else. We're constantly saying, dude, I love you. Like, thank you for doing this. Like, you killed it. And I think there's a mutual respect there. And like, because of that, like, I can't let Joe down. Like, when we go into sessions and we're doing starts, like, there's a friendly competition of like, yo, my beat does need to be better than Joe's. Like, I can't, I need to show him what I've been practicing. But on top of that, it's like, I can't let him down. If this needs to get done, it needs to get done. Yeah. And it's more than just me at that point. And I really do, I think we both feel
it does make you strive for, like, to achieve more, I feel like, because of that.
Yeah,
you know?
Definitely.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I love how you guys talked about that objectivity of having, you know, the second person that isn't necessarily doing exactly the same thing you are.
No, yeah.
And because when you're working by yourself, you're just overthinking you can overthink every single decision. And like, is this the right decision? I don't know. And then your ears, you know, fatigue, and then you just need time to get objective. But if you have another person, then that could probably give you a lot more, you know, endurance and a lot, you know, a much healthier sense of, is this good or not?
For sure.
And we're always coming up with new cool things too, because there's another person now involved. It's not just you. Because like, you know, sometimes you come up with like a new cool production technique and you're like, whoa, that's really cool. Like, I never would have done that like 5 months ago. But like, that's always happening or consistently happening when you now have another brain involved. You know, like Joe is going to be doing things that I would never in a million years think of.
Right.
But it's so cool now.
Yep.
Because I wouldn't have thought to do that, and he did it.
And then Zach will do something, I'd be like, oh, whoa, now that's sick, so like now I have another idea.
We like both continuously like, inspire.
Inspire decisions. I think that's the best thing about having any collaborator in the room, production partner or not. That's why I always just tell people like, find collaborators, man. Like you can't do it all on your own in your room or in the studio because like, music for me, the idea of it is supposed to be shared, right? You know, I'm doing music to share it with people. Why would I not want to get collaborators that I trust and love on that process? Wouldn't make sense to me. You know what I mean? So you know, I think that's just how I've always been playing in bands and whatnot. Like I always loved playing in bands because I always had other collaborators there. You know what I mean? Like it was an automatic thing that you could bounce off each other. You know,
and you'll become a better person by working with others. Like I think we all go through this stage of like, I need to do everything myself. I need to be the sole writer, the sole producer, the sole mixer. Yo, it's going to go so much faster and it's going to be so much more fun working with other people. Of course, you have to choose the right collaborator, but...
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of that comes from like ego. I'm like speaking for myself, from my own, you know, experiences of like trying to do everything myself. It's usually just because I'm full of myself, but I'm also full of shit. You know what I mean? Like,
and that's normal though. We even get that sometimes rarely, but sometimes in the partnership even too. Yeah. So I understand.
Yeah, I mean we're all a little bit full of it, but no, I love it, and it's like the synergy of two heads are better than even the sum of its parts. It's like the Beatles effect, or the Simon and Garfunkel effect. You know, so like they're all good. You know, Paul Simon's great by himself, but come on, Simon and Garfunkel.
Yeah, it's like that's the sauce. You know what I mean? You can't. And the best thing is you don't. nobody can explain it, and you shouldn't be able to. It's just something when two people come together, like Zach and I come together, or someone in Garfunkel, or whatever. I saw it with Brandon Boyd and Mikey in Incubus. Like, for some reason, it just works. You don't know why. Like, obviously, by themselves, amazing vocalists, amazing guitarists, or whatever it is. But when they come together, it's like, whoa, there's like something there, like nobody can really explain, but it just works really well, and it's really cool to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. So tell me a bit about how you guys find artists to either produce for or write with. How does that work for you guys?
Yeah, it comes from all. It's funny because there's not like one path. I mean, sometimes I'll just be listening to like Spotify's like new music, like pop, like fresh finds.
Fresh finds.
And I'll be like, yo, this guy's dope, or this chick is dope. Like, I'm gonna reach out to them. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's as simple as that. More often than not, I feel like though, it's Zach. I feel like maybe you can agree with it. It's usually us stumbling upon somebody through another writer or artist.
Or someone's like, hey, you should work with
that's what I'm saying.
Tommy because he's great.
Yeah, like we'll be in a session and our friend Brooke like, oh, I did just go Angela. You should really like work with her. She's great. Or we have a large network of managers and or like agents and stuff like that, like and like A&R people that'll just email us like, hey, I have this new artist, like you guys should work with her. Like we're trying to get an EP together, or whatever it is. Like you guys should do a session and see if it clicks. But
prior to that, because I do feel like we're in a fortunate spot now where we've built the
network of people.
But prior to that, you have to build your network, and unfortunately, no one's going to build it for you.
Instagram helps a lot.
Instagram is like
when you're first starting.
Instagram can be the devil in terms of like what they're like. The advertise. Like there's so many bad things about social media, but I'd say for the music industry, it is like so much more normal. You can slide into someone's DMs. And, like, there are tricks to it, too, where it's, like, you need to know. Like, there's a whole psychology of it. And as long as you're, like, providing value, I think, is, like, a big thing. And, like, we always start and try to compliment someone on something that they've done. Because it's really not about us. It's like, hey, I really dug the song that I heard. Like, that concept is sick.
Yeah. We just love working with cool artists and great people. Yeah. So, like, automatically, when I hear something that catches my ear, like, I'm automatically going to reach out because it's like, like, why would I not want to work with this person? You know what I mean? Like, it just makes sense,
And don't be afraid to send a cold email or a cold DM. I think that's one of the things the biggest thing that I had to get over, and it helped to have Joe because we're able to divvy up the responsibilities. But I think that's one thing personally that, like, I just got, like, you'll send 10 DMs, one gets back. You'll send 100 emails, only 10 get back. Like, it's just... Yeah. But it's a law of numbers. The more people you reach out to,
and that one person's going to know 5 or 6 other people that if you guys get along, they'll be like, oh, you should work with my friend, like X, Y, and Z, like they're great too, like and like all of a sudden you work with one person and then you work with another, and that person knows 5 other people. I mean, it is like the effect that everybody talks about. Like once you start building that network and figuring out who you like to work with, all those people know better people. You know what I mean? That they also like to work with.
And the other thing I was going to say too is like, by building your network yourself, you're also ensuring the fact that you're working with people that you do want to work with. Because one of the things is like, you're going to have times where you're going to have to work with people you don't necessarily want to work with because maybe it's a political thing, or you're just like, I have the day open, I want to do a session. But by reaching out to people specifically and cold emailing them and DMing them that you really like fuck with their music, you're actually building a network of people that you really like their music. And I think that's even more important because the people we work with, like, I love their music. And it means so much more to work on music that you really like rather than doing a session just for the sake of doing a session.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a great takeaway for the audience. And for me also, just to, stop waiting for phone calls, like find the artists that you really love, reach out to them, and then hopefully that'll be the kind of music you end up working on,
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, like
it's a proactive approach.
Yeah, if you find 10 people you really like and you reach out to those 10, one's probably going to say yes to doing a session, especially if you're just like, hey, I just want to work with you. I don't really care what happens after that. Like, let's just work together and see what happens. You know what I mean? Like, that's a great way to get them to do it because it's like, who's going to say no to free work? I mean, it's like, okay, at the end of the day, you get a song you don't like. Okay, boo-hoo, it's 5 hours of your day. You know what I mean? Whatever. It's like,
And then one other thing I'm going to say is, and this is a very unsexy part, again, of being an entrepreneur and having your own business, because we're all business owners at the end of the day. And I think we really try to keep that in mind, is Joe and I are sending at least 1 to 2 hours of emails every week to try to meet new people, to do administrative tasks. Like, I would say that like 75% of our time is spent doing administrative stuff, or maybe 70% of the time is spent doing administrative stuff. 30% is actually making music. There's so much that happens behind the scene that you have to take care of. You have to do the registrations. You have to do the split sheets. You have to talk about the uncomfortable things like money. And you have to reach out to people, and you have to keep growing. Like, I think that has been the reason why we've been able to be so fortunate and be so successful in the past year or two, is because we know that consistently every week we have to be continuously reaching out to new people. and sending emails and following up.
Steve would always tell me when I work for him, there's no such thing as knowing too many people in the music industry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so it's like, you know, like that doesn't exist. You can't know too many people. It's like, so that next A&R guy I'm going to email to get in good with his roster or manager,